How to use if function in Excel with 4 different criteria, 4 different conditions. Through this practical example, we're gonna see how can we do it step by step, and we're gonna solve here 2 real problems. The first one is to automate the task that I need to do here, and the standard if function only allow me to use 2 different criteria, 2 conditions. But here I'm gonna show you how can we use 3, 4, 5 or more different criteria within the if function. Let's start here, understand what I have in this practical example. As the first column, I have the students' names, and then I have here 4 different tests and the grade that each one of the students got in each one of the tests, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Then in the next column, I have here final, where I have actually the average of all these previous grade that each one of the students got. And then, as the final column is the final grade itself, I need to fill it in with the final grade. But instead of using here, again, the values, numbers, 7, 9, 6.8, and so on, I need to instead use here letters. So A, B, C, or D. If a student, let's say, got greater than or equal to 9 as result, as final grade, so I need to change. Instead of using the grade itself, I'm going to use A, for example. If a student got a grade that is greater than or equal to 7, so he got a B, and so on, so on. So basically, I need to follow here these 4 different criteria, 4 different conditions. We basically have here in Excel 2 options to use. The first one is equal sign, ifs function, for example. But if you don't have this option, ifs, you can also use the if function itself. But with the if function, we're gonna have a problem. That is, the if function, let me just double click here, 1, 2 to select, only allow me to use 2 conditions, 2 criteria. The value if it's true and the value if it's false, A or B, for example. Let's take a look here with this practical example, and we're gonna understand why this happened and how can we solve it. The logical test is the first thing that the if function is asking me. My logical test here is gonna be if the final grade that I have, the student got 7, 9, 6.8, and so on, so on. So if the final grade, for example, is greater than or equal to, I need to use here these 2 symbols, greater than or equal to, let's start with the 9, comma, if it's true, so I need to type it in the letter A. But instead of filling in, type it in here, I'm gonna click in the cell because I already have the A typed in here with inside the cell right there. Then I'm gonna just press F4 key to lock the reference, because whenever I click in the cell and drag down, I want to this reference right here, the A reference, stay in the same cell, for example. I don't want the reference of the cell drag along with the function. I want the reference stay in the K2 cell, okay? So this is why I just press here F4 key, comma. So if the student got grade that is greater than or equal to 9, so I'm gonna get as result the letter A, for example. But else, if it's not true, if it's a grade that is less than 9, for example, I still have 3 options here, 3 conditions. It can be B or C or D. But here in the if function, it's only allow me to append 1 more criteria. So to solve this problem, I'm gonna use the if function again, but this time within the if function. If, I'm gonna double click here again, 1, 2 to select. Now we have a nested function because we are using a function within another function, nested function. The logical test that the if function is asking me, we already know how to do it. So if the final grade that a student got, let's say 7, that we have right there, but I just need to check this final grade is now greater than or equal to 7, for example, like this, comma. So I need to input here the second criteria that is going to be as result the B letter. F4 key to lock the reference, comma. I need to use 2 more criteria to finish here my function. So that way, instead of using just 1 more criteria that is the if function is allow me to use here, I'm going to append another if function here. If, double click to select 1, 2. The logical test that I'm going to use here is going to be if this final grade right here now let's say is greater than or equal to 6. If so, comma, I need to get as result the letter C, for example, this cell right here. And then F4 key to lock the reference, comma. Now we can just finish the function. If the first criteria is not met, if the second criteria is not met, if the third criteria is not met, so the only thing left for us is the last condition. So the letter D. This is what you're going to choose here now. I'm going to click in the letter D, F4 key to lock the reference. I'm going to close parentheses, one more time. This is how we can use the if function in Excel with many criteria, as many as conditions as you need to use. If you need more criteria, you can continue to append the if function within the if function. If you need, let's say, just 3 criteria, you're only going to need to use 2 if functions. But if you need to use, let's say, maybe 10 different criteria, you're going to need to use maybe 9 times the if function. But okay, let's stick with these 4 different conditions here. Enter. Okay, we got the first result. And we basically done, we automate this spreadsheet, and I also input these 4 different criteria within my if function. Let me click here now in this cell right here. I'm gonna double click here in the right down corner, 1, 2, to make sure I can drag down the function to all the rows that I have, and we basically done. And it's also dynamic. Whenever I change here any result, so let's say Peter got here a 7 as final grade, and that way he got a B as the final result. If I changed, let's say, the test 3 to, instead of using 5, I'm going to use 10, enter. And instead of using here as the test for 6, I'm going to change to 10. Again, enter. And as you guys can see, now Peter have here 9.3 and also a final grade that is equal to A. So it's dynamic. Whenever you change any value, any result, the function is going to automatically be updated for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or any suggestions to the next videos, let me know, comment down below, and I see you tomorrow. As every day has a new video, I see you there.